Mighty number 9.
Yep, this is it. We're actually doing this. This is the way I've chosen to make my big comeback to YouTube special. And yeah, it'll be very special indeed. I am Jasu, and this is Mighty Number 9. The infamous Mighty Number 9, some might say. I actually, got this game with a Steam gift card that I received as a Christmas gift. So, some gift, huh? But, obviously I chose it for myself, and as it turns out, I think it was a good choice. I rather enjoyed my time with this game. Obviously, this is not going to be a blind playthrough. I have played through this before, so I'm kind of, going... In fact, I've played through this a few times, as you can see here. Normal, hard, and hyper difficulties. But, I guess we can just, start there. Or I guess one other thing to mention before we get started. You'll notice the audio. You've actually got the option for retro BGM, which is like the 8-bit type stuff you're hearing now. Or you can get, the modern style. This is, you get... So it's, off is default, and this is kind of the... Retro is the alternate soundtrack. Honestly, neither of them is very good at all. I'd say the music is, one of the many weaknesses of this game. I like this game, but I understand a lot of the criticisms of it. I do feel that it has kind of been treated unfairly by the internet to a large degree, but there are many, many valid criticisms to be made. All right, this is one of them. You've got to, how do you even, right, you got to go down and apply the changes before you go out of the options menu. Oh yeah, and we got the other audio switchover that I made is we've got the Japanese voice acting here. Not that it matters, we're going to be skipping all the cutscenes. I skipped all the cutscenes my first time through the game as well. I have never... I watched about a minute of the very first cutscene of the game, and then I just decided, no, never again. We're done. Anyways, I guess we're going to have to clear out some data before we start up a new game. So, we're going to go through... So, this is actually kind of interesting here. By default, your first time through the game, you can only do normal, and then you'll unlock all of the other difficulties after you've cleared the game. Now, normally I hate that in video games, and in fact, I would have preferred to play through on hard my first time, but one of the interesting things that the later difficulties do is basically anything above normal. It makes the game harder. You've got more enemies and the boss patterns change up a little bit, but you also... It's like a New Game Plus thing as well. You start out with all of the different boss weapons on hard mode and beyond. I kind of want to keep things a little breezy and simple though, and also just kind of, give you the basic experience of Mighty Number 9. So we're just going to go through on normal again here. I pretty much heard nothing but complaints about... frankly, I've heard pretty much nothing but complaints about pretty much every aspect of this game on the internet. I did not purchase this blindly or naively. I had... my very first time through the game was basically a blind playthrough. All right, they're not going to let me dash until they teach me how to dash. That's real dumb, but whatever. I guess that's one reason why I believe if you play through on hard mode, it will unlock your dash right off the bat, and the dash is kind of a core mechanic of the game. Oh yeah, here's where we trigger the cutscene, and we skip the cutscene. Wow, I forgot how this this game would be awful without the dash, and actually the way I see a lot of people play this on the YouTube and the Twitch, a lot of people don't seem to really understand that you're supposed to kind of dash your way through. And yeah, it's the difference between watching someone who's skilled at this game play through and watching someone who has no idea how to play a 2D run and gun whatsoever is night and day. This game certainly looks horrible if you watch someone play it who's terrible at it. I'm not the greatest. I remember seeing actually the speed run of this at Summer Games Done Quick, or was it? Or I guess it was just AGDQ was the most recent one. Got a little one-up over there. The AGDQ speedrun of this was super impressive. Yeah, as far as the different difficulties in the game, hard mode changes up. Yeah, hard mode, all of the other difficulties give you all your weapons to start off, and then hard mode changes up the enemies a bit. There's more enemies, and the boss patterns are changed a bit. Then hyper mode is basically the same as hard, except the enemies do more damage. And then maniac mode is a one-hit kill, basically, where you've got, or I think you only get, no, it's not one life, but it is one-hit kills. So yeah, that's the way they did the speedrun at AGDQ, which was super impressive, in my opinion. I am not nearly at that level of badass. In fact, I don't think I even made it all the way through on my hyper mode playthrough. This game is not super difficult, but it's like kind of up there in terms of difficulty compared to the other sort of, you know, like the real Mega Man games, which I'm probably going to be comparing this to a fair bit throughout this playthrough. I actually feel like it compares most, like I'd say the biggest similarity, actually, rather than like classic Mega Man, is actually Mega Man X, and most of that is because of, like, you know, you got the dash here, which was sort of a core mechanic in the Mega Man X series, and it's even more central to the gameplay in Mighty Number 9. Oh yes, I guess speaking of, like, the way the gameplay works, let's actually explain what the fuck I'm doing here, because it's not actually completely obvious, really, or not completely intuitive. This game plays quite a bit, like a fair bit differently. Basically, you got this, what do they call it? The Rexcelerate mechanic, which is basically your dash. And, yeah, basically, you don't just, like, shoot the enemies until they blow up. You shoot them until they start glowing. And even the bosses work this way. You shoot until they start glowing, and then you dash through them to, like, absorb their energy, or whatever. And what that does is, if you've got any, like, boss weapons, it'll restore your weapon energy. And, it'll also refill your E-tanks, and you sort of get E-tanks by default. I believe there's, like, a little icon that you, like, right below my health bar in the upper left that I can't point out anymore because we're done the level. But, yeah, I had an E-tank below my health bar that you could have seen this whole time before I actually started talking about it. So, yeah. Hey, A rank. Awesome. I did not get very many A ranks my very first time through the game. But yeah, and then so if you... and yeah, basically the quicker you absorb the enemies after killing them, or not really killing them, but after weakening them, the quicker you absorb them, the more energy you recover, both for your sub-tanks, or E-tanks, whatever, and your weapon energy. So yeah, you don't really have, like, the item drops, like the random, you know, health and weapon pickups like you did in Mega Man. This system is actually kind of an improvement over the old random drops, in my opinion. It's a lot more just consistent, really. Like, it's the same thing. Defeat enemies to sort of get a bit of weapon energy and a bit of life energy, but it's, like, consistent. So yeah, it's kind of neat. It's like a neat new system, and it also makes the I don't know. There are sort of mixed reviews out there as to whether or not it's like a good, good system for a 2D run and gun Mega Man style game. Personally, I think it's interesting. I actually like the way that just shooting and absorbing enemies works in this game a fair bit, and that's kind of central to whether or not you'll like the game, is whether you or not you like that aspect of having to, like, actually run in and absorb the enemies instead of just shooting them until they blow up. Here you can see you get a bunch of tips. So it's like, there's no, or I think there is an in-game tutorial, sort of, if you go into, like, I think it's, yeah, and here, the challenges. It's not like a direct tutorial, but it kind of shows you a bit about how to play the game, and then there's a bit of explanation if you actually sit through the cutscenes and enable the subtitles, which I hate. It's another minor thing, but, like, I turned off subtitles for this playthrough, so you're not going to have any idea what any of these people are saying unless you understand Japanese. But, and the reason I've disabled the subtitles is because it gets in the way of the gameplay. It's like this massive text box at the bottom of the screen, which is, like, right where your character is running around and doing stuff, and it's just awful. Just a lot of kind of awful, just kind of interface and usability problems in this game, which I'll point out as we go through. And one of it, which is, like, a lot of kind of essential information is actually hidden away in this tips screen here. You wouldn't know to, like, look for tips here. You go under, like, the sort of tips and tutorial messages are under game options. Then there's actually some really useful stuff here. There's, like, stuff that I actually didn't know about my first time through. For example, There's actually a whole other button on the controller that like does things. You can hop backwards and shoot at enemies by pressing right trigger. And it's, yeah, honestly kind of worthless. I don't think you ever need to do this in the game. But like I said, I got through the whole game my first time through without even knowing about this. But, you know, it's there, and it's kind of interesting. And you wouldn't really know about it unless you went through this tip screen here. And also, some of the stuff that I've seen people complain about playing through the game is explained here. Like stuff like so some enemies will give you power-ups, sort of temporary buffs if you absorb them. The ones that glow red give you... Actually, this is another thing, the crouch dash, which a lot of people, it's like, how am I supposed to know that's in the game? It's right here on the tips screen. Explains the crouch dash. It also explains slippery surfaces. Why the hell can't I grab onto ledges in Cryoman stage? It's because slippery surfaces cannot be hanged from. It's all explained right here in the game. All of this stuff that people bitch about, and it's not, they're right to bitch about it. That sort of stuff should be kind of explained in the level itself, but it is here. They kind of expect you to read the manual, as it were. It's just that the manual is kind of hidden away under game options, which is not really where you would expect it. Honestly, most of the biggest problems I have with this game are those kinds of little, like, navigation and, like, usability and interface type things, rather than gameplay and level design. There are some problems in that area, too, but... Anyways, I've been yakking a lot. Let's actually get to another level here. And I guess, yeah, I'm not really going to concern myself too much about how I'm going to divide up these videos. We'll just do it in one session. If I were playing through this game, like my first time through, or the way I did it my first time through is I just went through them one by one. And I did a pretty good job of it, I think. I cleared, I think, a little over half of these guys my first time through. But if I were to make my recommendation to new players, it would be to go to Countershade first. Because, yeah, this is, I'd say this is, yeah, probably the easiest stage. Probably by a fairly large margin, and certainly the easiest boss. So, yeah, this is, we're gonna start things off. Of course, if you're playing on, like, hard mode or higher, it doesn't really matter where you start, since you get all the weapons anyways. So yeah, as I was kind of talking about how I think this game gets a bad rap, and it's better than people give it credit for, this level is actually pretty lame, to be honest. This is probably my least favorite level in the game, and that's part of, you know, it being so easy is part of the reason of that. It's just basically just these big, kind of mostly empty-ish corridors. The concept is actually kind of interesting, which is kind of unusual for the levels in this game. There's not a lot of sort of originality or just not much of anything interesting going on in most of the levels in this game, to be honest. Like, they're solidly designed, don't get me wrong. It's just there's not a whole ton of, like, imagination or creativity on display here for the most part. But this level is kind of an exception. You're sort of going through... This level, it's like kind of got a fixed size to it. It loops around, so if you continue going to the right or left, you'll eventually just come back to that starting room. And the idea is you, want to go through here and track down the boss, who's, you know, kind of sniping at you from afar. So it's, you know, kind of a neat idea. You've got to hunt down the boss. And it's just like, you know, I don't think I've really seen anything like this in, like, a, you know, a mainline Mega Man game before. So it's a neat idea. It's just not really executed very well, in my opinion, because, like, there's not much level to it. It's just, like, these big empty mostly empty corridors with, like, a few enemies. Like, you can just dash through and not even bother with most of the enemies, and it's just like, why? This is so neat. Why didn't you do something cooler with this? And which way is he firing from? We're going that way, then. And then guess what? Guess what comes after that last part? Yeah, another big empty corridor. This time you got these little statue guys jumping after you who you can not even bother with. Don't even need to really do anything there. So yeah, that's that part of the level. It's kind of, yeah, as much as I was talking about how much I kind of like this game better than most of the internet, I kind of started with a bad level to show that off. Maybe I should have put some forethought into how I was actually going to present this game, but whatever. Like I said, the game has problems. I am going to be pointing out a lot. It's not going to be a complete love fest. I am going to be pointing out a lot of what I think are the flaws of the game. And you know, normally, like these kind of enemy rooms, like, you know, where it's just like lock the doors and throw a bunch of enemies at you, are the sorts of things I complain about in this type of game. Like Mega Man X8 did a lot of that, where it would just like stick you in a room and throw a bunch of enemies at you until you kill them all. And that really sucked in that game whenever it did that. But I don't know, I feel like it works a little bit better in Mighty Number 9, just because, I don't know, I think it's mainly like the combat system, like the fact that you have to be going through and, oh, this guy's gonna get away if I don't hurry up here, isn't he? Shit. Okay, the level was actually going to end there if I got enough shots on him, but now we're going to have to... This is kind of another shitty thing about the level. Is, yeah, if you miss your shot at Counter Shade, then you just got to go through and chase him forever. And it can get really aggravating. I've seen it get really aggravating for people who are kind of shit at the game. They just, like, chase him endlessly and never manage to get... They'll chase after him and catch him and never actually get enough shots to move on to the next phase. But yeah, so yeah, the level would have been over after the previous encounter with him if I hadn't screwed it up there. The other thing with this level is that there's no checkpoints, but still, it's still a pretty easy level on the whole. I think you'd have to be pretty bad at just Mega Man games in general, or just at like 2D side-scrolling platformer run-and-gun type games to have trouble with this stage. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure I like one-lifed this my very first time through the game. Oh yeah, I forgot skipping the cutscenes. So yeah, I got no weapons to deal with this guy, but you don't really need them because this guy's, yeah. Because if you just mash and like take him down fast enough, you can get him before he even shoots at you. Oh yeah, one thing about the bosses, if you weaken them and then fail to absorb them quickly enough, they'll start to regain HP, which can be a huge pain in the ass with certain bosses who we'll encounter later. But this guy, there's just nothing to it. I believe he'll go into like his... Oh, not yet. Yeah, this guy's a joke, really. Okay, now he's gonna do his little, yeah, desperation attack, kind of. This is actually kind of another thing from, almost sort of from Mega Man 8. Or Mega Man X8, rather. I feel like there's a lot of, like, Mega Man X8-esque stuff in this game. But yeah, in Mega Man X8, the bosses would, like, often, once you get them down low enough, they do a desperation attack, and then the fight changes up a bit. Like here, he's got his hologram. If you actually pay attention to, like, what the two of them look like, though, it's not hard to tell which is the real one. Yeah, super easy boss. Easiest in the game by far. The weapon he gives you isn't amazing, but, you know, it's kind of alright. The weapons in this game are generally alright. That's another sort of solid thing. One point of praise I could give to the game is that the boss weapons are generally really neat, actually. With some of the best in, like, the... Like, if you compare the weapons in this game to just the boss weapons in the Mega Man series in general, this game has, like, one of the better sets of Robot Master weapons. Hey, we got an A rank again. Awesome. I guess I'll just go down the weakness chain, maybe. Okay, so we got Counter Shade's weapon, which is basically just a rebounding sniper shot, like he shoots at you. It has very little... Yeah, it has very little weapon... Oh, actually, yeah, if you go into the tips here, it'll actually... So yeah, it doesn't show you how to use the boss weapons. Like, you don't get that helpful little sort of demo after you beat the bosses that some of the Mega Man games had, where it would show you how the weapon works, which is a shame. I don't know why every Mega Man game, like after they started doing that, doesn't do that, because it's just so cool and helpful. But you can go over to the tips here and it'll sort of explain how it works. So this is kind of like a semi-homing shot. It just fires in a straight line, but then once it hits something, it'll like bounce and home in on something else. One thing that's kind of interesting, too, is that the different boss weapons have different amounts of weapon energy as well. Like in the mainline Mega Man games, all of the weapons took like the same amount of energy to refill. Whereas in this one, some, Counter Shade's weapon here only has like 3 or 4 shots you can use with it, but it refills super quickly. Oh yeah, one thing I kind of didn't like about the game is it actually like spoils the boss weaknesses for you. Like if I go to highway here, we get like start and explain. Good explanation. That was really, really helpful. But if we go to the radio tower here, we can get some advice. And what that basically means is that, hey, stupid, this is the boss weapon. Go use this guy against this guy. So, yeah, a bit of a shame there. I really like having to, like, you know, try all the different stages and figure out for myself which weakness applies to which Robot Master in the old Mega Man games, but they take away that pleasure from you. And again, it's kind of a just like interface UI thing, because if you even just had the option to turn off the advice thing, it would just be, I don't know, better for me, at least.